I will now call the meeting to order on this date, Monday, June 25th, and ask the clerk to take the roll.
Councilmember Archibald. Here. Councilmember Cole.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Here.
Councilmember Moeller.
Here.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Here.
Mayor Rep.
Here. You have the minutes from the regular meeting of June 11th. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Cole. Is there any additions or deletions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes stand as submitted. We'll move on to presentations.
Number 1 is Laura Newsom of the Council of Aging will speak about senior services.
Mayor Rep, Mr. Brown, council members, good evening. The mission of the Council on Aging is to keep seniors living independently in their homes for as long as possible and to avoid untimely institutionalization. We do that by providing a variety of programs and services that are dispatched from 4 multi-purpose senior centers across the county, our main center being here in Port Huron. Funding for the Council on Aging is varied and multiple. Our main funding source is the Senior Citizen Service Millage. It makes up about 53 to 55% of our funding. And the next 30 to 35% are state and federal dollars. But we are not able to apply for the state and federal dollars if we do not have the local senior millage. It represents the local match that we must have in order to access the state and federal funds. The rest of the, that makes up the 100% is United Way, Michigan Department of Transportation, and local donations. The Senior Citizen Service Millage, being our main funding source, is on the ballot at the August 7th primary this year. It is on the ballot requesting a 0.3 mil increase. We have not had an increase in the senior millage for 26 years. We have stretched those pennies as long and as far as we can, and we now must come back to the communities across this county and ask for some support. There are 7 agencies that receive funding from the millage. Council on Aging is one of them. We do get the lion's share of the money, but we provide the lion's share of the service. So for this evening's discussion, it will be Council on Aging perspective that I will be coming from, because obviously that's what I know best. The Council on Aging currently has waiting lists in every service except one, and that is the Senior Nutrition Program. This is a conscious decision that was made by administration and supported by the Board of Directors, that we direct our dollars to the Senior Nutrition Program. At the Council on Aging, we feel that it is fundamentally wrong to put a frail elderly on a waiting list for food. Food is the most basic of all needs, and in order for someone to stay living independently in their home, they have to have food. Let me give you a scenario that happens on a regular basis at the Council on Aging. An 85-year-old widow lives alone, has taken pretty good care of herself with some minor support services. She has a cardiac episode and goes into the hospital. She has triple bypass, survives the surgery, goes into rehab, does well, is able to return to her home where she most wants to be. Either her family or the hospital discharge planner will call the Council on Aging and request that meals be started the next day when she comes home. Without an increase in the senior millage, our response to them about a year from now will be, we will be glad to bring her dinner, and we will be able to start to service her in 6 to 8 weeks. We will lose her before that time period lapses. That's why we have made this decision to put our money towards the food and desperately need this in the increase. We've been trying to raise awareness about this program in the community, and we've done a variety of things so that people will understand the importance of the senior nutrition program. Certainly myself and the other Council on Aging members and staff members and other agencies are out speaking. But we did an exercise a couple of weeks ago called Big Wheels Deliver Meals on Wheels. Mr. Brown and Mayor Rep were part of that. I believe there's others here this evening that also came out to support this. What we wanted was for our community leaders to get a first-hand view of how important this service is. It's one thing for us to tell people about it. It's another thing for you to see it yourself. So we had our community leaders deliver 3 to 5 meals. As they were leaving, I made a request to them. Look in the face of that frail elderly when you deliver the meal, and let them look in your face, because most of the time, the person who delivers the meal is the only face that they will see all day. And I've heard from many of our community leaders that were involved in the activity, and they told me that it was an eye-opening experience for them. They recognized firsthand how important this service is. The cost. You know, I'm a homeowner. I don't want any more new taxes, but I recognize that the return on this small amount will be well worth it. If you own a home valued in the market at $100,000, it will cost you approximately $15 a year for this increase in the millage. And the way we're explaining this to people, that is, I think, a parallel that people can recognize. If you go out to dinner, you will easily spend $15. We're asking people if they will give up one $15 dinner a year. It means that hundreds of senior citizens will get their dinner every day for a year. We currently home deliver 1,100 meals a day, countywide, to keep people living independently. So what we, again, as I say, what we're hoping for is that people will recognize that these services, and I'm just talking about nutrition now, but all of the services that are provided for seniors is so important. Baby boomers, we've all heard that term, baby boomers. As I look around this room tonight, I think there's a few of us that are already in that category. In 1986, we were serving 3,000 seniors a year. In fiscal 2011, the Council on Aging served 10,000 seniors. Baby boomers are changing the world, and it has been said that in the 1960s they changed the world, and now they're doing it again. The overwhelming demand for service is there. We see it every single day. So if you feel that you could support this, again, I can't tell you how to vote. I can only encourage people to exercise their right of freedom and get out and vote. But if you believe in the services that the Council on Aging provides, tell your friends and your families and your neighbors and everybody you know how important these services will be to thousands of seniors. Communities that take good care of their most vulnerable residents, that being their children and their elderly, are better places to live. And the city of Port Huron has always been one of those places. Thank you for listening to me this evening. Are there any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? No.
No.
Thank you very
Again,
much.
thank you for your time.
We will move on to public hearings. If the clerk would please read the first one.
Public hearing number 1 is to hear comments on the maintenance costs of the Huron Avenue Streetscape Project, which is located from the north side of Black River to the south side of McMorran Boulevard, Following the public hearing, council will give consideration to a resolution to approve the continuation of the Downtown Special Assessment District for the ongoing maintenance of the Huron Avenue Streetscape project.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on public hearing number 1, the Huron Avenue Streetscape project from the north side? Seeing no one, I will declare the public hearing closed and ask for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewandowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz. Is there any discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Mayor Rupp.
Yes. We'll move on to public hearing number 2.
Is to hear comments on the maintenance costs of the Military Street Streetscape project located from the south side of the Black River to the north side of Court Street. Following the public hearing, council will give consideration to a resolution to approve the continuation of the Downtown Special Assessment District for the ongoing maintenance of the Military Street Streetscape project.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on public hearing number 2 for the streetscape on the south side? Seeing no one, I'll declare public hearing number 2 closed and ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Lewandowski. Discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rupp.
Yes. We'll move on to public comment time in the agenda. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on any item either on the agenda or under which we have jurisdiction, you have 4 minutes. And if you would come to the podium and please give us your name, now is the time to do so.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Dennis Cooper, the Vice President of Blue Water City Cab at 1418 Pine Grove Avenue here in Port Huron. I'm here to express my concerns and opinions and address the item on number 4 on the agenda regarding the issue of cab license to another company. City Cab has been in business for over 65 years. I feel it could cause great financial burden not only to our company but to the other 2 companies that have been established over 7 years. After talking to other owners and representatives of their company, we are all concerned of our futures. If the council were to consider authorizing another company to use the amount of license allotted to our companies that we are not using, City Cab is now allotted 10 cabs and are currently using 6. I believe if there was enough business to use the license we are allowed, we would use them. Drivers are currently averaging between $75 and $100 per 12-hour shift. As it is, we do not replace drivers that quit working for us due to the decline in the business. I believe another company could cause all of our companies to close, including a new company. Please do not consider assigning our license to another company, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Don Swinson, Port Huron Cab, 1231 Water Street. I'm still trying to figure out how you guys see there's enough business here to add a 4th cab company. We're barely making it as it is. Not enough money to fill all the license, apparently. It's going to be short and sweet. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Keith Urbahn, I'm in here on behalf of Acme Cab. On January 22nd, 2000, the city of Port Huron licensed the 3rd taxi cab service in Port Huron and Port Huron Township. Of course, at this time, there was the 2 opposing taxi services that advised that this would be unbearable for losses as far as each of our company, which it has been. Okay. Now here we are threatened again, once again, with another taxi services. We today become dependent on our existing services and our employees and residents of Port Huron as well. The existing taxi services are already struggling, trying to make their major losses of income. Adding another taxi service to this company will hurt our employees and our residents of Port Huron. A large amount of our services to our employees to the city. Also, another taxi service would cut into our wages, which would be losing the loss of more of our employees, our residents. Everything is just, they can't afford another deduction in the wages. Our people will be leaving, our families will be leaving the area because they can't afford their style of living, they'll be living at a lower level. And the Port Huron area is already happy with what we have. I see no sense in bringing into another company into this area. It's ample amount of people now. If you bring another company in here, it's going to damage all the people in Port Huron and our companies. Thank you.
My name is Laura Lee LaCroix. I'm a cab driver here in Port Huron from 918 White Street. I'd like to give you a bit of perspective from a cab driver's standpoint on the same issue with the cabs. I have worked for all three cab companies in the last 11 years. 11 years ago, we might have been able to do another cab company. Money was coming in hand over fist. In the last 4 years, I have made $10,000 to $12,000 a year as a cab driver in this city. However, I've tried to stick it out with this city to go back. The economy is slowly bouncing back as I see us taking more people to jobs. However, these people are just starting jobs in Port Huron. The economy is just picking up. The city has already extended the bus service, which cut into our pockets immensely, especially on the Saturdays. After 6 o'clock, we used to take all these people back to the Huron House. Now that the buses run, we lost that section of business. However, I understand with the situation in the economy with Port Huron that the buses had to be extended to help the lower income and the people just starting jobs. But the people holding on to these temp jobs through the temp services aren't holding out their money to a cab. They're holding it out to the buses, bikes, motorcycles. To add a fourth cab company into this town would cut our income so greatly that many of us would have to find another service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Robert Green II. I am the CEO of Execuride Limousine and American Diplomat Cab at 3321 Dove Road in Port Huron, Michigan. The comments that I'm hearing from the competition out here is that they are afraid of seeing diminishing incomes to themselves. My opinion and my background with a cab company is it's here to serve the people of the city of Port Huron and the community. And, you know, competition is here to provide the best service that's there. We have an upcoming conference center and many events to this area to which we need to have a more premier service. I provide a more premier service in Execuride Limousine as we use all Lincoln sedans and top quality vehicles. In my current business, what we also do is transport medical patients. Many of those patients have to rely on the local cab services. They have, for the period of time that we've been in business, expressed to me and my drivers that there is substandard cab service in this area, that the cabs are smoky, the cabs are dirty, the cabs are not always in the best of repair. There has been one company until recently that ran two very, very nasty vehicles that were rusted and rotten. The exteriors of some of the current cab vehicles that are out there have rusted panels. And what kind of an image does that give for the city of Port Huron, and especially when we have incoming new business such as the Hilton and the Hyatts and the things like that we're trying to attract. Last year during Mackinac, we were called for a sedan service for several of the Mackinac sailors because they would not ride in our local cab services. We are asking for one license. We are asking to provide a competitive situation to which these cab services can place the same standards and compete for the same business that we will. We are here to improve in the city of Port Huron and try to make a better standard of transportation here. All of my drivers are very top-notch people. They're very well screened. They're very well educated. Many of them are retired people from postal services and things like that that have been in contact with people. I believe that's what this area needs. My limousine service has gone and grown 300% in the last 2 years based upon the same type of exemplary service that's there. I think that allowing one license to us to compete and show the people of the city of Port Huron that there is a better standard out there, and show our upcoming guests and new people to the area would be a welcomed situation. And I ask that you grant us that license tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Rep, Council, my name is Deborah White. I've been driving taxi in this city and county for over 15 years, with a vacation of 2 years of driving in West Virginia. With this, I transport people for executive ride limousine service to and from doctors, to reinforce what Mr. Green has said, that their comments are all about how they don't want to ride in the other services because of the way that the drivers appear, the way that they are talked to by the drivers, the dirty cars, and so on and so forth. And, you know, with this, they have given us the idea of, you know, that maybe we could do this. I am one of their drivers and the manager. And the drivers that we do have are very dedicated, and we do believe that we can make this license work and that we can all work together for the city of Port Huron. Like Mr. Green said, we have so much coming up in this city with the convention center and all the races and the different street things that are going on, that there's room for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the council this evening?
I would like to, please.
Yes.
Appreciate your time. I'm Tom Brown. I'm from Jetto. I'm actually advocating for my friend Mike Gino and his wife Jeanette, who live on St. Clair Street. I was concerned about the way they might be handled during all the development there, the culinary school and such. What I want to reacquaint you with, I'm sure you're familiar with the story of King David in the Old Testament, 2 Samuel. It's in chapters 11 and 12. King David was at the height of his power. He had lots of wives, concubines, power, things, armies. He had sent his army into the field. This story concerns 4 people: King David, also Uriah the Hittite, one of his most ardent followers, and Uriah the Hittite's very beautiful wife Bathsheba, and also Nathan, the prophet of God. While Uriah the Hittite was off with the army doing battle, Nathan was home and enjoying the palace. He saw Bathsheba, fell in love with her, committed adultery with her, and she became pregnant. Sorry, all confused. King David was home, committed adultery with Bathsheba, and she became pregnant as a result of that. A lot of other exciting circumstances occurred, but ultimately what King David did was ordered his general Joab to send Uriah the Hittite to the front of the battle lines, then withdraw from him so that he would be killed in the line of battle, thus absolving him from any, at least, discovery by humans. God was aware of it, and Nathan the prophet came to David and revealed his guilt to him. I don't have it memorized. I have to read this to you. I apologize for the reading. The Lord sent Nathan to David, and when he came to him, he said, "There were 2 men in a certain town, one rich and the other one poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to him. David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over, because he did such a thing and had no pity." Then Nathan said to David, "You are that man." Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, I would like to thank you in the name of Jesus Christ for these leaders that you've provided to us. They act with your authority temporarily and on your behalf. I ask that you bless them mightily, bless their families, bless their work. I also ask that you exert your authority through them and extend your compassion and your mercy to your faithful servants, Mike and Jeanette Gino. It's in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, that I ask these things, Lord. Amen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council this evening?
Hi, my name is Michael Gino. I live at 2028 St. Clair Street, right in the middle of the property where the convention center is planned to be developed. I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak tonight, and I know that many people seek public office because they want to have an opportunity to do good and have some influence on a better decision-making result. Tonight you have the opportunity to stand up and be courageous and make a better decision, a decision that about 2 items on your agenda that come to you after a flawed process, a process that presented barriers to my wife and I to equal participation, that sabotaged our input as citizens, violates laws, and it represented an extreme bias toward the developer and big money. Since I spoke to you in the last 2 weeks, there really has been no communication offered to us to help us with some kind of compromise or provide us an opportunity to get out of the way of these developments. The developments that are planned around us by the culinary school have a very negative impact for us even if we stay there. And you sent a message 2 weeks ago to the developer by passing the first reading that they could just continue to what they've been doing all along, which is to ignore us, residents of Port Huron, living in the way of what they're trying to do. Also in the past 2 weeks, Jeanette and I have learned that she has cancer of the liver, which is also spread to her lymph nodes, which means that her illness is progressing. Imagine for yourself if it were a family member of yours living in our house, suffering from cancer, needing to sleep much of the day, and you have bulldozers rumbling the ground around your home, or hammering pylons in the ground that not only disturb Native American bones, but somebody you love. What I'm asking you to do tonight is to be courageous and think about it if it were your family member. The money that we asked for our home was not motivated by greed, but because of the looming huge medical debt that may be before us, needed to be met as well. Now you have the power to do what perhaps might be unpopular to some people who have power. You have the ability to vote no on the alley vacation, or at least propose a motion to postpone it so that the resolution or the resolving of this issue that I tried to start this morning could complete to a positive end. Mr. Wheeler has the ability and can afford to fix this, but has sought not to. Instead, he'd rather pressure you to move on a time scale that would steamroll over us without seeming to have any concern. I would like to have an opportunity for better outcomes. I would like to approach this and give it an opportunity with the other parties motivated to meet with us and to work with us. Your actions tonight have some moral consequences, and I ask you to think about them, not only for our sake, but for yours. How will you feel after you vote? Remember that power is passing. health and prosperity is temporary, and that there may be someday when you are in our position, as Dr. Brown expressed tonight, the poor man. I ask that you think about how you're going to vote, consider how you'll feel afterwards and how it'll affect us. To postpone these decisions will not do that much harm to the other parties, but it
Mike,
will
your
bring...
4 minutes is up, so if you'd like to wrap it up.
I will. It will bring a message to those who own the land currently right now to work with us and to come to a present resolution. I left you some information 2 weeks ago that I know you probably had a chance to read, which you didn't then. I sent out an email this afternoon as well, asking that the process be allowed to continue positively. I ask your support in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the city council?
Hi, my name is Karen Tomlinson. I'm here to support the Genos. I know them personally, and we're here, and it is a very dire situation. And please vote no and postpone this. This is a terrible thing they're doing to them. They really need you to vote no, so please help them.
Thank you.
Good evening, council and administrators. Sharon Bender, South Boulevard, Port Huron. I am here too in support of Mike Gino. I actually sit on the Planning Commission, and this came before us. I would encourage you, as council members, to listen carefully to what he said, to step in. Possibly, Mr. Clegg, he was very good at resolving the issue with the township and the hotels. Perhaps he can help to work out an agreement. I encourage you to postpone this and do the right thing. I really strongly believe that the convention center, McMorran, all of this is going to turn out very positively, but we must do the right thing. We cannot be unfair to someone who has given so much to this community. I urge you to postpone this. Let something be worked out that is fair to this family, just as you were fair to the hotels. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is David Ellingwood of Port Huron, and I belong to the Blue Water League of the Blind, and Gino has contributed a lot of assistance for the blind community, and he needs our help. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the city council this evening?
Good evening. My name is Sharon Brown. Good evening, Mayor Rep and the council. And this is totally off your agenda, but I know it's been in the paper about the fireworks. I have been threatened several times. My daughter and her fiance have been setting off fireworks. I was told now the council is involved, the fire department is involved, and the police department. The police have been called twice. They are legal fireworks. And they are done before, anywhere from 8:30. And there was one time I said it was 5 to 11. I says, that's it, cut it out. It's 11 o'clock, ordinance. And I had an officer at my door one day when I was laying down and come to the door and told me all these were involved. And if the fireworks was, another complaint was made, that there would be a ticket issued for malicious destruction or disturbing the peace. Now, we're talking before dark, and we're talking before 11 o'clock. And he said the council was involved. I didn't know where else to turn but to start at the council. I haven't bought one fireworks, for one thing. I'm on disability. And but I have had harassment like all other. I have been turned in for blight, which I talked to the blight, and I says the day the letter was written, my grass was cut. I got 3 lawnmowers, one with no wheel, one that don't work. My son-in-law come and cut my grass. The day the letter was written, the next day the garbage was to the road. So she laughed and she says, well, I'll put you down. She says, but we had complaints. And I says, I know exactly where they're coming from. And it's supposed to be a neighborhood watch. And I'm just, it's legal as far as I know. And I see in the paper where Port Huron has mentioned something about doing a 30-day, 10 major holidays, is going to be working on that, which is fine with me. But what do we do now? I mean, we light off fireworks? Am I going to be arrested? I don't light it off. I mean, excuse me, I'm on disability, and I don't need the stress of all this harassment. I mean, I've had them yell 3 houses down and told me to take my Section 8 butt and move in the country. I am not on Section 8. I have nothing against people Section 8. I pay my full month's rent. I do not get state assistance. No Medicaid, no food stamps. I pay my rent. And my landlord is quite upset because I'm ready to move because of the harassment. I have another one coming across and calling my daughter whore and other words that I'm not going to use. And I'm supposed to be bringing my husband home from Metal Hutch in a week. And now he's going to have to deal with this. So where do I go?
At this time, the council has not addressed any further ordinances about fireworks.
Yeah, I
But it's
understand.
certainly, I think, something administratively being talked about. State law does allow, I believe, 30 days during the year where they can set them off, but right now, it's complying with the noise ordinance.
Yeah.
So,
And they're going off all around us. I mean, you sit on the porch and they come down screaming, looking for a fight. And we went, what's going on? All you had to do was come and say, you know, it woke my baby up. Let us know. He does, it's my future son-in-law. And he does stop because people work. And he's done usually by 10 o'clock.
your time period's up, but that is something that the council will probably be looking at in the next while, but certainly
Yeah, well, I
don't
was
have an
told the
answer.
council was already involved, the fire department's involved, and we are gonna get a ticket for it, so we can't set. And last year, we had no problem. The kids enjoyed the fireworks I live on Ward Street. And they sat there, they enjoyed it, he is extremely careful, and I don't understand what the problem is.
Well, I don't know your specific details of your incident, so I guess I would just refer you to Chief Reeves, and he can talk to you about it afterwards.
All right, thank you.
Right, Chief? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the council this evening? Seeing no one, I will declare public comment period closed. And we will move on to...
Mayor,
Yes.
could I ask for number 6 to be removed from the consent agenda, simply because I have a question about it?
Number 6,
Yes, please.
is there anything else?
You're up.
Yes,
I'd also like to ask that ordinance number 3 be taken off the consent agenda.
sure.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion then for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Ruiz will take the vote.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Items on the consent agenda, reappointed Larry McNamara and James Wu to the Zoning Board of Appeals, terms to expire July 1, 2015. Approved an agreement with Techret Group LLC Consultants and Actuaries to conduct an actuarial valuation of post-employment health care benefits for the city of Port Huron. Confirmed and declared single-lot special assessments in the total of $11,131.64 for demolition proceedings. Gave a second reading and enactment to an ordinance to amend Chapter 46, Traffic and Vehicles, Article 4, Impoundment of Vehicles under the code for the purpose of amending the number of unpaid parking tickets before a vehicle can be impounded to coincide with state law. And we, nope, that's it. I guess we're done. That's the consent agenda. And so we will move on then to resolution number 1.
Is approving Exhibit A, which is to become a part of the intergovernmental agreement with the City of Marysville to join some operations of the Port Huron Fire Department and the Marysville Fire Department.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Cole. Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there discussion?
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Harris.
how is this different than our current setup with the fire department? By what I've seen right here, we have 21, possibly 21 officers and 36 firefighters. And I would wonder at that percentage-wise why we would have that, or some of these people actually firefighters, the lieutenants.
Mr. Brown, who did you want to answer that?
He's my fireman authority.
Right. Good evening, everybody. What this represents is how the two departments, Port Huron and Marysville, will be staffed today. The contingent of Marysville firefighters and so on are the same as they existed 6 months ago. Port Huron would be one firefighter less, which was somebody who was lost through attrition. Other than that, this chart merely represents two departments side by side with one chief at the top. Might I explain why this got delayed? Yeah. What happened is Mr. Halverson from the union, the firefighters union, called me and asked if we would hold off approval of either the agreement, which I didn't really think we had time to do, or at least Exhibit A. Out of respect to him, because we've been trying to work with the unions through this whole process, there have been, Chief Koenig's had several meetings with them, they've attended council meetings, I had a meeting with them, and we've tried to work through these issues. So out of respect to him, I said yes, we would remove it to give him an opportunity to talk. I then offered dates to set up, and in the meantime, he sent me a letter voicing his areas of concern to the organizational chart. When I looked at the letter, it had things in it that, this is going to sound kind of how things happen sometimes communication-wise, but there were things in the letter that were not reflected in this chart. And so I sent him a response indicating that the things he was concerned about were not going to occur. As it turned out, we were looking at two different charts. The one he had was an older version that was scrapped a long time ago, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that he didn't have this one. So with that, there was no need to have a meeting. There were no real comments on this chart because it just depicts the two departments side by side with a single chief. And what Chief Koenig is going to do is be working toward potential further integration of the two departments to save money to the extent it's possible and in no way compromise the service. And then if some ideas are reached in that regard, what will happen is there'll be notice to the unions and then we have to negotiate with them concerning any potential impacts of that. In addition to that, we're meeting with them this Friday. The purpose of that meeting is to try to hammer out an agreement to establish a joint management labor agreement or committee under which ideas would be shared, policy changes would be reviewed, things would be basically partnering together to the extent we can and heading off problems. So at this point, I can represent to the council this is a non-issue. Thought it was when it was pulled, but it's not.
So in actuality, this don't basically prevent filling vacancies in the future?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Fletcher?
The fire marshal is labeled captain, he has some kind of command over the officers underneath him, I'm taking it from this chart?
Yes.
In the previous chart, did he have that before when Ike was here?
Chief Koenig, can you address that? I know the answer to that. I didn't see the various iterations to this.
I'm just curious as to what the setup was compared to what it is now, I guess.
Councilmember Lehman, which organization, are you looking at Port Huron's existing?
I'm looking at Port Huron, I'm not
Marysville's?
really worried about Marysville's, but fire marshal there, the captain, he will have some kind of day-to-day command over the officers underneath him there?
Yes.
Previously, did he have that?
Yes, he was the point person in the absence of the fire chief formally.
The point person when he was absent, but the day-to-day commands he didn't have.
Correct.
Okay, but now he will.
No, not according to that. The battalion chiefs have the day-to-day overseeing.
Okay, when
You
you're
see the-
not there, who does the battalion chief go to?
When who's not there?
You're not available for something happens at one of the fire stations?
Then they would go to the fire marshal.
Okay,
And that's the way it was in the past.
all right.
Any other questions from council members? Thank you. We will call for the vote.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
No.
Councilmember Moeller.
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. Resolution number 2.
Is vacating alley number 134, bounded by State Street to the north, Thomas Edison Inn to the east, properties adjacent to St. Clair Street to the west, and Bridgeview condos to the south, with the reservation of a full-width public utility easement.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Ruiz, is there discussion? I guess, go ahead.
Is it possible, if that's what Mr. Gino was talking about, is this has to do with his property?
I believe so, yes.
Could I ask that this be tabled to the next meeting?
You can make a motion to, are you asking for it to be tabled or to be postponed?
I'm asking to be,
There is a difference.
which is the best?
If you table
Postpone.
something
I just spread the message. Postpone, please.
Yeah. Until the next meeting. You-
I would request that, yes.
Is there a
Or make
second?
motion.
I'll make the second, just for discussion purposes. I'd like to know why Mr. Harris likes to do that, so I'll make the
We have a
second.
second from Councilmember Moeller, so we can have discussion just on the postponement at this particular time. So I assume that Councilmember Moeller would like to ask Mr. Harris, is that it?
I'm just interested what the reason for postponement is.
Well, I guess my concern is I'm not sure that this doesn't infringe on Mr. Gino's comments here and his negotiations with the city. Perhaps Mr. Brown could elaborate on that.
Bruce, did you want to comment on what it would be? I guess if it were to be postponed, how does that affect the
I
project?
think, I'll just speak from my perspective, and I'm not in the middle of the negotiations. Gary, you're probably closer to that than I am, but I think that would end the project. Because the closings are scheduled for July, and this is one of the items that the bank is requiring to be accomplished.
Okay.
You want to add anything to that?
I agree.
I understand that over the past 2 weeks, there have been extensive meetings with the Genos to try to come to a resolution. Is there somebody who can kind of summarize maybe what has been offered?
Well, this goes back quite a number of months. There have been many discussions with the Genos. The issue seems to be the value that they have placed on their property.
They have point of order?
Beg your pardon?
Point of order?
Well, we can't get into the subject matter too much, it's just about the postponement.
Right, we're just talking, it's
Yeah.
just about the postponement, so.
Whether or not we want to postpone it or not is what we're talking about right now, and you can't really, unless you have comments further about the postponement.
And you've heard my comment.
Yeah,
If it's postponed,
yeah.
the game's over.
That's
Right.
my question.
So if there's no more discussion on the postponement, we'll take a vote on the postponement, and then we can go back to the original motion, if that be the case. Go ahead.
Councilmember Moeller.
No.
Councilmember Ruiz.
No.
Councilmember Archibald.
No.
Councilmember Cole.
No.
Councilmember Harris.
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
No.
Mayor Rep.
No. We now have the resolution in front of us again, so now if you want to continue your comments, Mr. Brown. Sorry
Guess
to-
my question's more appropriate now, I apologize.
The issue here has been there's a large gap between what Mr. and Mrs. Gino are asking for their property, at least asked initially, and what is considered to be the fair market or appraised value. Mr. Gino, and I hope I'm speaking truthfully and honestly, feels that there's more value in this property than the appraised value because he has sentimental and emotional attachments to the property. Although they are blind, they also greatly appreciate the river, the openness of their property to the river. And they are used to the peacefulness of the neighborhood, and they're used to the noises of the river, and that has a value to them. The parties that have discussed buying their property early in this process felt that the gap was too great to begin a negotiation process, particularly when they would be somewhat bound by the appraised process, the appraised value for the property. So the hotel convention center moved on. This property is completely surrounded by property that would be owned by Baker College and would have the Culinary Arts Institute. We discussed a number of options with the Ginos. One was to move the building to a vacant lot in the area. They, being blind and living in this building as long as they have a familiarity as to where things are. And moving to a new home isn't necessarily an easy thing. They can reach in the cupboard and know that the split pea soup is right here because that's where they put it. So there's a familiarity there. And they were not interested in a site other than the one that we're in. We suggested perhaps buying a similar home and moving them to a different location, and I've explained the issue as far as that is concerned. One of their concerns is that their property is only 30 feet wide, and the house and the sidewalk occupy most of that, and with the vacation of the alley, they would not be able to reach their rear yard with vehicular traffic. Just this morning, Baker College offered to gift them a 15-foot slice of land along their entire north side of their property for this purpose, so that they would be able to have access to that rear yard and would not be hurt by the alley vacation. And I believe and again, I hope I'm representing you fairly, Mike, but Mike feels that there should be a delay until such time as the property changes hands and Baker College can provide him with a deed. The property isn't going to change hands until Mr. Wheeler purchases the entire site, and then he would sell the Baker College site to Baker College. So we're quite a ways away from a point where Baker College is able to sign a deed for that property to Mr. and Mrs. Gino. And that's where we are. That is the current issue.
Well, that would not be a normal time to speak unless council has a question for you at this point. Okay? If they do, then I will entertain that. But
Hey, Rep.
yes, Councilmember Moeller.
I would just like to say that I feel sympathy for the Ginos because I believe that this whole process was a ramrod. But with that said, I did look at the vacation of the alley, and that should have been done years ago. So I'll be supporting the motion. It has nothing to do with the Ginos. As Mr. Brown said on the radio today, it's if we let Kim Harmer go up there and see it, she'd cite us for blight for not cutting the grass on it. So, it should have been vacated years ago, so.
Yes, Councilmember Lewandowski.
I guess I have a question for Bruce or Gary, I'm not sure, but the city doesn't own that piece of property right now, right?
No, the city's not really involved in this. These are private.
Why are we involved in the negotiations with it? That's what I'm
Because
trying to figure out.
I've had a lot of discussions with Mike. 2 weeks ago, we sat down in his backyard for a couple of hours and talked about this issue, and I seem to have an ability to walk between a number of different parties here. The city's not involved in this at all, other than trying to facilitate something that would be fair to one of our citizens and fair to potential developer as far as our community is concerned.
Anyone else have any questions or discussion?
Mayor Rep.
Yes, Mayor Pro
I
Tem
must throw it in
Archibald.
there. Again, I agree with both Councilmember Moeller and Lewandowski. I certainly sympathize with the Genos. However, I personally believe that every effort has been made to come to a negotiation, and I think at this point for us to risk losing this project by postponing or not passing this we would be very derelict if we did this. I'm very concerned that this project's been held up long enough, and I think we need to move forward, and hopefully Mr. Gino will take Mr. Brown's words of good faith that he will continue to negotiate on his behalf, and we can resolve something. But I think the requests have been unreasonable and extreme for the situation, and therefore I will be supporting this.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'd just like to make a final comment. I know
Yes,
Bruce has
Councilmember.
gone out of his way to talk with the Genos and meet with the Genos, and I shouldn't reflect on anything on how he got a vote. My biggest thing, and I hope Bruce continues on some dialogue, that we can get this squared around. Like I say, don't be disturbed by my vote, because I really have the confidence that Mr. Brown can negotiate something after tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Any other council members? I'd just like to say also that I do empathize with the Genos. However, I don't believe that the vacation of this alley, which also is something that should have been done a long time ago, is really going to harm them. And I do believe that Mr. Brown will follow through to make sure that exactly what has been said will happen with Baker College. So with that,
Mayor Rep?
Yes,
Did you
Councilmember.
just agree with me?
I did.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make a note of
How
that.
many is that this year? We'll have to record that.
Did you put that in the notes, Sue? All right, thanks.
Yes. We will take the vote.
Councilmember Ruiz.
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald.
Yes.
Councilmember Cole.
Yes.
Councilmember Harris.
No.
Councilmember Lewandowski.
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller.
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We will move on to resolution number 4.
Is authorizing one new taxi cab license to be issued to Execuride Limousine Services LLD, doing business as American Diplomat Cab for the current licensing year ending October 31st, 2012.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewandowski. Is there a second?
Support.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there discussion?
Mayor Rep?
Yes, Councilmember Moeller.
I believe the owner of Executive Cab made the statement that the address of the business was 3300 block of Dove, is that correct?
Yes, I believe he did.
Yeah, that's located outside the city limits, and I'm a supporter of the local businesses. That means this company is not paying property taxes, the employees are not paying city taxes, and therefore I would not vote to allow them. If they want to move their business into the city to compete with city businesses, I would support them, but at this time I will not be supporting them based on that alone. It also, based on the comment of one of their drivers, it appears and sounds like they're operating illegally in our city currently without a license, based on the statement made by one of the drivers.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion from council?
I guess I'd just like clarification. What I was hearing was that the licenses that are currently authorized, they aren't all being utilized because there isn't a demand, so they're holding those licenses. Like, should there be future demand? Is that how that works?
Yes,
Mike.
it is. I could answer that as a previous city clerk, or I could answer it as, yes, that's true. Is there any other, yes, Councilmember Harris?
I have one question here. The comments were brought up here about the safety and the upkeep of the current vehicles in the city of Port Huron. And I know we have an ordinance on taxi cab inspections, and I just would like to know if the fact is true that we're putting vehicles on the street that shouldn't be on the street.
Perhaps Chief Reeves would like to address that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Councilman Harris, all the vehicles are inspected at the time they apply for a new license, so those vehicles at that time pass the inspection.
So how,
Go ahead. As we all jump in, he hides behind the podium. I was just going to say, is there an ongoing, and not, I know you don't have a point of inspection, but if your officer sees a cab and thinks there's something wrong with it, they're certainly going to pull them over. and-
Absolutely, we would stop the cab and make an inspection on that, or note it for the commercial officer to inspect, and if there was a problem with it, we could cite the cab driver or cite the owner.
Do we get complaints?
You know, in any business, you get complaints. I wouldn't say there's been an inordinate amount of complaints. Actually, for the amount of companies, the 3 companies we have, there's not a lot of complaints. Nothing I would say is out of ordinary.
Councilmember Cole, did you have another question?
No, the answer came in your question, so.
Yes.
Is
Councilmember
it
Lewis.
common in other cities for cab companies to hold on to licenses they're not using so people can't buy them if they want to open up their own business?
I've never really, I don't know that. Do you know that, Sue?
I don't know really when this practice started, that they are authorized for a certain amount, and then they don't actually get that many vehicles. I'm not, I don't think we ever checked into that, did we?
That's been that way for many years. It predates me even, but that's many years.
I'm not going to agree with you, Mayor.
I could see you wanted to say something, so.
I wasn't going to say that, though. I don't want it to be our second agreement, or we'll never agree again.
But I think at the time it was that, of course, you can always hope that your business is going to get better, so you would take the maximum amount that was offered at that time, and hopefully it, there's been times where I believe, Sue, if that's not correct, where it goes up and down. You can have 6, they might have 9, then they go back down to 6. They put cabs in and cabs out of service at different times, depending on the call for it.
And the cab, we issue, one license for every 1,200 people? Is that what it is?
Yes.
I would be open to see it so people can't hoard the licenses, so if somebody wanted to come in and open up another business and they have that opportunity, so I know we're not discussing that right now, but it's definitely something I would be open to in the future.
Okay.
Mayor Rapp?
Yes, Councilmember Cole.
I do have one more question. The issue of the style of vehicle and the service that was being offered came up. Is there someone that can speak to that, if they're offering a different kind of service than the current taxi companies that we have, a different, more luxury sedan?
Well, I'll ask Sue.
What do you
'cause
mean,
she
with
would
the company that wants to get the one license?
Yes, I guess what I'm looking for is, are they going to be providing a service that's a little different than what we currently have? Or do our current companies offer the same, like, luxury sedan services?
Well, they can have whatever vehicle fits the description, meets the code of being a vehicle for hire. They have to have the meter up on, inside the vehicle, the sign up on top of the vehicle. So are they offering anything different? No, they're offering the same thing. They may have a different product in which they're putting out on the road.
And they all have to abide by the same fee structure,
Correct.
no matter who's in business. So they cannot undercut each other for the business. That part is the same fee.
No,
Or
they
have
are
done that?
allowed.
Have they changed that?
Yes, we deregulated that a few years, I'd say 2007 or 2008, where they can choose to put in a different rate structure if they so choose, but they have to give us 30 days notice in writing, and then it goes into effect 30 days after that. They're all about the same. They are all running about the same price for what they're charging.
Any other discussion?
Mayor Rapp?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
Once again, I'm going to agree with Councilmember Moeller, but only
Why?
partly. Certainly, we want to support our local business establishments that are right in Port Huron, but on the other hand, I don't want to get in a situation where we start sending a message that we're not encouraging and welcoming new business, and I'm afraid that's what we'd be doing by saying no. If we become difficult for people to work with, then sooner or later, we're not going to have any businesses wanting to come here, and I'm certainly sure most of us, that is not the message we want to send.
The city clerk was just showing me, if anybody's interested, that right now, out of all the authorized licenses, there's actually only 11 in existence right now that are being used. So, is there any other discussion?
I just have one final comment.
Yes.
If the fact is, which I don't use a cab very often, but if it was come to their service, I would directly take one of the local cab companies for my service. But if I could afford a limousine service, I would definitely go with a limousine service, which I cannot afford, but I would.
Could I get a verification? I know that that was stated by Councilmember Moeller too, about the fact that they were talking about transporting medical patients, I believe is what was said right now. Is that not the same as a? Okay. Thank you. I think it was stated from the audience that they do have the ability to do that. It's not the same as they're contracted to do that, so, okay. Is there any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
No.
Councilmember Moeller?
No.
Councilmember Ruiz?
No.
Mayor Rep?
Yes.
Passed, just so people know.
We'll move on to number 5.
Authorizing the Information Technology Director to pay the annually required maintenance and/or support fees for all hardware and software programs and to sign any necessary agreements relating thereto.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Cole. Is there discussion?
Just a question.
Yes, Councilmember Harris.
Sue, under the city charter, which you so diligently brought to the council after a lot of work, does this have any effect on anything in the charter?
No, if you authorize him to proceed, it's only for the software packages and the hardware packages that we are currently using. It sort of makes sense. It's become difficult if we go back and say, okay, this one we did have council give authorization for him to pay the annual costs. This one we didn't. It's become kind of confusing, and it only makes sense that you would, in his purpose, that we continue to pay those fees. Some of them are starting to reach the $5,000 mark, and so rather than trying to keep track of which one does, which one doesn't, do you consider the $5,000 if you bill it quarterly, or is it the whole yearly bill? We just did not want to violate with the new purchasing ordinance. We feel that it's important you give us the authorization to proceed with paying these. He does list them in the budget worksheets for all of the ones he's going to continue on with.
Then I'll support it. Thank you.
Any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Mayor Rep?
Yes. Move on to resolution number 6.
Is confirming and declaring single lot special assessments in the total amount of $5,010.68 for the removal of noxious weeds and other blighting factors.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald, is there a second?
Support.
Councilmember Lewandowski. Is there discussion?
Mayor Rep, I just have a
Yes.
question, I guess, for Kim. 929 Court Street is on here, George and Pamela Vaughn. I think we already motioned to destroy that house and tear it down, so who gets stuck with the bill? And what happens to these buildings when, I know when that came up, they said that they had it went to the bank or whoever, so who's getting stuck with this bill, if anybody?
That's a very good question, and it's a problem that we are encountering, Councilmember Moeller, Mayor, and rest of the council. This particular one is where the property owner lost it in a foreclosure. We're told that the bank is refusing the asset, and so what is happening with that is that technically the owner of record has not changed. The bank won't put it into their name. The property owner, the previous property owner, then it retains in their name. They are getting the bill, but obviously because of the foreclosure and their circumstances, they have moved on and they are not responding. This will go as a lien on the property, and at some point, because no one is paying the property taxes, it will go up for a tax foreclosure sale. We have made attempts with the bank and with the previous property owners to see if they are interested in deeding the property over to the Housing Corporation, who owns the one that the family also owned next door, while we are waiting for the Washington office for the State Historic Preservation to give us the final approval on the demolitions. And if we are successful with that, then the Housing Corporation would be responsible for the bill. If not, it'll go again with the tax as a lien. So,
Who owns the property next door?
the Port Huron Neighborhood Housing Corporation, a nonprofit group.
All right, so who's the bank?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't bring that file with me. I didn't-
Oh, okay. There could be more, the Vaughns are friends, so I just was taking care of their backside, I guess.
Yeah.
I was
No, and I
interested.
understand their situation. It's difficult. They were told they no longer had it, and then the bank walked away from it as well, basically. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Discussion? Okay, we'll vote on it.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to number 9.
Supporting the city's application for Transportation Economic Development Fund, known as TEDF, Category A funding for the Harker Street project.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Cole. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Harris. Is there discussion?
Mayor Rep.
Yes, Councilmember.
My one question with this is using that area quite frequently, and it seems to be they're cutting the curb in 2 different places, and I don't see any site plan in here. And that's all. I support this, but it'd be interesting to see what the site plan is.
Did you have any comment, Mr. Clegg?
Mayor Rep and council members, there are 2 components of the Harker Street extension. One part is being done by the Michigan Department of Transportation. They are funding it, they are designing it, they are building it. That particular piece would extend from Pine Grove to 10th Avenue. The part that is before you tonight is the city. We've designed improvements from 10th Avenue to St. Clair. And in an effort to identify every possible funding source to go towards this project, we're submitting a grant application. We don't know if we'll get the grant, but we're trying to find as many different resources as we can to support the project for the improvements for the new development. And MDOT has shared with us that it's a very good candidate for application because of the nature of that project and the fact that it's going to add jobs and so on and so forth. So that's the effort we're making, and we need council support to proceed with that.
And I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to ordinance number 2. However, council does have a request here from the person who requested it originally to amend the boundaries, that they would like to have this postponed until the meeting of August 13th, as they're not ready to move forward with obtaining their liquor license yet. This is for the former Victorian Inn property. So somebody.
I'll move.
Move to postpone?
I'll
Okay.
support.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the postponement? We will take the vote.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes. We'll move on to ordinance number 3.
Is being given its second reading and enactment, and is an ordinance to amend Chapter 52 zoning of the Code of Ordinances for the city of Port Huron for the purpose of updating the chapter.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there a second?
Support.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewandowski. Is there discussion?
I'd just like to ask Kim Harmer for some clarification. I was able to speak with her this afternoon, but just on city council being taken out of some of these decisions, to just speak to that and what city council's role will still be. Should someone perhaps dispute one of these special use permits?
Ms. Harmer?
Mayor and council members, sorry. This is on ordinance number 3. correct?
Number
Second.
3.
With the request for rezoning changes to the ordinance, the special use permit, we had discussed that some cities have the option of allowing their planning commission to issue the special use permit for items that are allowed in a zoning ordinance, but typically you want to place some sort of condition upon them. And you want to have a public hearing so that you can hear input from the neighbors. So at the planning commission level, when someone applies for, and I gave the example of a daycare center with 6 or children in the home, we get quite a few of those, and they would make an application. They would wait until the following month's meeting for planning commission, where the planning commission would then set a public hearing for the following month after that's agenda. They would have the public hearing, and then the city planning commission would typically make a recommendation, stipulate any special conditions that they might want to have tied to that based on the input that they've heard from the neighbors, and then make that recommendation on to the city council. And then city council would typically hear it again and agree or disagree with the planning commission's recommendations. So what we have found is in some communities, not to take away any power of the city council really, but really to provide better service for the majority of these, is to allow the planning commission, when they impose those special conditions, to issue the special use permit. That does not, as I said, bring the council out of it entirely. If the planning commission were to deny the special use permit, the applicant could go before the city council and appeal that and ask the city council to hold their own public hearing and make a decision that they would then overrule or agree with the planning commission. On the same token, if the planning commission made a decision and the neighborhood didn't agree with that, they could approach the city council as an appeal process and ask for them to conduct the same process. But the majority of these are pretty straightforward, and the conditions that we set are based on the recommendations or the information that we hear from the neighborhood. So we took a look at the zoning ordinance and some of the other changes that we were making, and our suggestion was to remove that as one of the items.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Answers your question?
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Ms.
Yeah,
Harmon?
one question.
Yes.
Here under section 52-193, 7D, it says a solid masonry wall or other barrier material approved by the planning commission shall be 5 feet high in height and shall be constructed. Would that, in that instance, would that require you to put a wall around the Geno's house if parking was placed adjacent to it?
It would. It wouldn't have to be a wall. It would have to be either 5-foot-high non-deciduous shrubs as a continuous line like arborvitaes, or it could be a masonry wall. It could be a 6-foot-high privacy fence. Any of those would apply. The current standard is a 4-foot-high, and our recommendation was to change it because we did have some complaints that headlights from some cars, some of the larger models, a 4-foot just isn't really adequate. So.
Any other questions for Ms. Harmon while she's standing there? Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's no other discussion, we will take the vote.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
No?
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, we'll move on to ordinance number 4.
Is ordinance being given its second reading and enactment, and is an ordinance to amend Chapter 52 zoning, Article 3 District Regulations, Division 1 generally, Section 52-162 map of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Port Huron for the purpose of rezoning property bound on the north by State Street, east by the east line of alley number 134, south by the north line of Scott Avenue extended east, and west by Block 11, PH and NW Railway plat from R1 single and two-family residential to C1 general business district.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Archibald. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Cole. Is there discussion?
One question.
Yes,
This is
Councilmember.
Bruce. Mr. Brown, is this in part of the negotiations you're having with the Genos? Or does this affect the conversation you're having with the Genos?
Well, it does, because his is the only property that will be exempted from this C1 district. A little background, all of the properties along Scott Street between the Bridgeview condominiums and State Street were purchased in the mid-1980s by the owners of the Thomas Edison Inn. For some reason, and I don't know what it was, the Gino property was never included in that group. Everything in all of the Thomas Edison Inn property has been zoned C1. This was left in an R1 district because I think nobody thought about rezoning it. The bank is now saying we would like it all in the same zoning, and so that is the essence why the C1 district is being proposed at this point in time. We asked the Ginos if they wanted to be in the C1 district because that would impact their value upward, we think, and they chose not to, primarily because their taxes would be reflected as commercial taxes rather than residential. So theirs is the only property between State Street and the Bridgeview condominiums that would remain R1.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? We'll take the vote.
Councilmember Archibald?
Yes.
Councilmember Cole?
Yes.
Councilmember Harris?
Yes.
Councilmember Lewandowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Moeller?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruiz?
Yes.
Mayor Rep.
Yes, that concludes our regular agenda. There's a couple of announcements. The city offices will be closed Wednesday, July the 4th in observance of Independence Day. Also, there will be a dedication of the new Pine Grove Park bleachers this Friday night, June 29th at 5:30 p.m. And is there anything from other council members?
Yes, Mayor Rep, as I spoke to you before the meeting tonight, a lot of people don't know it, but there's been several meetings, in fact, 4 of them for the McMorran Authority. And I just think that it's proper for this council to thank Randy Myers, Denise Brooks, and Don Fletcher. I think they did just a phenomenal job of presenting it and being impartial, and I think McMorran's going to have a great future with these comments. The other thing that, I looked over the agenda that our city managers had, and I really appreciate the follow-up every week. But as I was telling you earlier before, one of the members or one of his visitors made a comment that Port Huron should have a Parks and Recreation. I think everybody in here should know that Port Huron does have a Parks and Recreation, and they do a heck of a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Rep,
Yes, Councilmember Moeller.
I would just like to say anyone wishing to send a sympathy card to my wife after 36 years of marriage tomorrow, they may do so, or stop in and see her at work and grant her your sympathy. But just want to tell the love of my life, it's been 36 great years, and I'm sure it'll be another 36. Thank you.
Very nice. Anything else coming before the council this evening? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.